Previously on my Lana Del Rey career recap, we learned about Lana's shocking ultraviolence, which defied convention and showcased Lana's dedication to artistry and her own vision. She had defeated the sophomore slump allegations both critically and commercially, and many were curious where she would go next. Chronologically, we left on the release of Ultraviolence in the summer of 2014. Ultraviolence was an undeniable success, yet Lana was already teasing her next project with interviews. Most famously was an interview in June of 2014, just as the album had come out, where she teased a potential title.
I have this idea for this record called Music to Watch Boys To. So, yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about that and what that means.
The end of 2014 brought about two big developments for Lana: continued success in the soundtrack space, as well as the endless summer tour with Courtney Love and Grimes. Shortly before Ultraviolence, Lana recorded a cover of Once Upon a Dream for Disney's hit film Maleficent, produced by Dan Heath. Heath would work with Lana again on two songs featured on Tim Burton's film Big Eyes, one of which, Big Eyes, was shortlisted for the Best Original Song Oscar the following year and nominated for a Golden Globe. The other song was I Can Fly, worked on with both Heath and Rick Nowels, her longtime collaborator, who actually was one of the chief architects for Honeymoon. Honeymoon was technically Lana's fourth album, but her third major label album. Development of Honeymoon, in retrospect, is very fascinating. It was released just 15 months after Ultraviolence and 3 months after her endless summer tour had ended. The turnaround time was astounding, when some artists take years between records. Lana was churning out 3 albums and an EP in the span of 4 years. Think about that. An interview with Grazia magazine gave people the first hint as to what Honeymoon would sound like. Lana hinted at a more orchestral sound that would explore the golden age of jazz. She also alluded to working with Mark Ronson, who was fresh off his success with Uptown Special, though later it'd be revealed that none of their work would actually end up on the final record. January 2015 marked the first time that Lana would acknowledge the record as Honeymoon in an interview with Billboard magazine, where she teased that she had completed some tracks and hinted that it would lean closer to Born to Die and Paradise than Ultraviolence. Lana worked with her longtime collaborator Rick Nowels, who co-produced and co-wrote every track with her. On the production side, they were joined by Kieran Menzies, who had engineered many of Lana's tracks throughout her career and even has a co-write credit on High on the Beach. In my last video, we discussed how subdued Ultraviolence's promo cycle was compared to Born to Die. Honeymoon actually took that to a new level, leaning more into print interviews, social media, and occasional meet and greets after the album dropped. Even looking back retrospectively, Honeymoon was really for the hardcore Lana stans. I really do recall that some people didn't even know Honeymoon had come out. If you were looking for Lana's music, you found it. If you weren't, you did not find it. Though, to be fair, this album did come out right after her tour, and Lana had already seen some success with Ultraviolence, showing that she could maintain a fan base while maintaining her privacy, which ironically lends a sense of mystery to her and her music. Once promo for the album started, it actually went really fast. Lana created an Instagram account named after the album in June. She revealed the album's track list sometime in September before putting it up for pre-order. The cover of the album shows Lana riding on a Starlines tour bus, and on that bus was a number that fans could call. Calling the line would actually lead to some track previews, and sometimes Lana herself would actually pick up the phone and talk to fans, which was a pretty insane tactic. On July 15th, in the middle of her endless summer tour, Lana dropped the first taste of the record by releasing the title track Honeymoon on her YouTube channel. I remember when the song came out, people wanted to buy the track, but it was not available on iTunes. You just had to listen to the video. Lana would release one of the only singles from this album and the only song from Honeymoon to chart on the Hot 100, High at the Beach, which had its own little mini controversy when Billboard incorrectly reported it charting in the top 10. They said that they misreported the sales numbers. Who knows what really happened? High at the Beach was a critical success, some calling it her most radio-friendly track since Summertime Sadness, yet still evolutionary. Its trap pop production, mixing an organ with an 808, really did remind some of Born to Die. The cold delivery of rather intense breakup lyrics is such a fun contrast because it evokes sedation and exhaustion to the point where she's just resigned for escapism on the beach. It's very relatable. The music video itself was a very fun satirical jab at Lana's encounters with tabloids, ending with her her wielding a modded Nerf rifle that blows up a helicopter. It was pure camp. One of her best visuals to date. Lana would release Terrence Loves You as a promo track along with Music to Watch Boys to before releasing a teaser for the album that contained all of the previous tracks and Freak. Urban Outfitters premiered the album with in-store previews, and they also hosted some of the meet and greets that Lana herself attended shortly after the album's release. The album itself dropped on September 18th to positive reception, even being her most critically acclaimed record on Metacritic until NFR 4 years later. Critics really did admire the ambient and experimental nature of the record. Pop Matters brought up a very strong point that Lana's prolific nature actually made her an unpredictable innovator. Pitchfork called it one of her most artistic works to date and argued that the album belonged in the canon of SoCal Gothic albums. The album made a bunch of year-end lists, and on the commercial side of things, it actually opened to number 2 on the Billboard 200, selling 116,000 units. The album was second only to Drake and Future's surprise record, What a Time to Be Alive. Honeymoon ranks highly for me as one of Lana's bravest records ever. I didn't really realize how much I liked this record until I revisited. It really harkens to Lana's Born to Die cinematic Baroque pop, but it really feels more like a concentrated, deliberate album than that album. There's a sophistication and polish to this record, whether it's the elaborate string arrangements or Lana's decision to really layer her vocals on most of the tracks. Where Ultraviolence was a blunt record and Born to Die felt purposefully machined, this record resembles a leisurely melancholic stroll into Lana's usual themes about romanticism, lust, violence, and the American dream, which oftentimes can be a nightmare. Critics interpreted Lana's voicing as indifference, but I recognize it more as exhaustion. Instead of lashing out in a traditional melodramatic vocal fashion, the instrumentals actually do a lot of the talking on this record. I thought that the title track itself serves to set the tone magnificently, blending together sweeping strings and vocals that immaculately build on top of each other. It meanders and wanders in its own soundscape, even allowing Lana to jazzily scat towards the end. Music to Watch Boys to is what I always thought served as a sequel to This Is What Makes Us Girls, even recalling the Blue Ribbon on Ice lyrics, though it's actually with ribbons in knots. Regardless, it's this crooning, melodramatic, melancholic, self-aware song about failed relationships with men. It's not music to watch boys to in the voyeur sense, it's music to watch boys leave to. It's that ability to subvert expectations that makes Lana such an artist. Terrence Loves You is a jazzy track that Lana really does call her favorite. The chorus furthers Lana's themes of abandonment, the switch up on the bridge, and even referencing Bowie's Space Oddity and using a metaphor about the distance she feels from her man is very devastating. God Knows I Try speaks to my observation that this album is about exhaustion in some way. In this track, she really does lament the cost of her success, the loss of personhood in the pursuit of fame. I've got nothing much to live for ever since I found my fame is one of my favorite lines, but the bridge is generally one of my favorite bridges from her from all time. You can actually hear the pain and anguish in her voice, which is pretty insane. I spoke about High at the Beach, but I can't deny how hypnotic it is, how resigned it really sounds. It's a perfect beach day song when it came out, and it still is today. Freak, when I first listened to it, it really did remind me a lot of The Weeknd's music at the time, which is really ironic because Lana and Abel would collab in the following years. Lyrically, it feels like an extension of Shades of Cool, and some of the cult elements from Ultraviolence bleed in there as well. I really love the obsessiveness of it all. It's just a great slice of dark pop. Art Deco continues the dreaminess of the record, but really harkens back to the young, wild and free motif that Lana often invokes, but with a lens of looking through the protagonist's insecurity and need to party and be the center of attention as misguided desires to be free from everything. Burnt Norton is such a perfect interlude where Lana cites T.S. Eliot to unveil her appreciation for his notions that what-ifs are irrelevant because time is unredeemable. The possibilities that we merely never took don't exist. Honestly, it really does feel like a perfect encapsulation for Lana's living in the moment mantra. Religion has to be one of the most romantic tracks that Lana has ever recorded to date. Comparing her lover to religion itself and binding her faith in him, it's just so optimistic and such a twist, despite it being kind of a little bit ominous about the self-destructive hints in there. I've really come to interpret this song as an ode more to her music career than a lover, because it really does hit harder that way. Salvatore has to be one of Lana's best atmospheric pop tracks to date. The ability that she has to world build and create a living scene through her lyrics is just insane here. The song itself is a tug of war between a golden lover and one who resembles soft ice cream of all things. It's just so filmic and well realized. The Blackest Day has to be an all-time ballad for me. The melding of genre, the way that the guitars and drums come in, the contrast between the stripped verses and a well-made chorus, the emotion is just gutting. The I'm on my own refrain at the end, it literally kills me all the time. Okay, I'm just gonna be salty here. 24 was rumored to be written to be the theme of Spectre, a mid-James Bond movie that chose a mid-Sam Smith song instead of this masterpiece. It is tailor-made for a Bond opening sequence. It's just so perfect. Like, we're reading the thoughts of a Bond girl who knows that she's about to risk her life for a man as cold as ice. The second to last track and the last original song on Honeymoon, Swan Song, genuinely scared fans into thinking that she was announcing her retirement due to lines about never singing again. But it's such a darkly rich song that plays with the idea of giving up. Some people really do believe that the subject matter is about a couple deciding to unalive themselves, akin to Romeo and Juliet. I don't think that necessarily. I think they're just giving up on their dreams. But the final track is a cover of Nina Simone's Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, and it really does set the record straight on Lana's end. Much like her cover for The Other Woman on Ultraviolence, Lana's interpretation almost makes it seem like she was the original writer of the song, like she's actually lived the track itself. I feel like it perfectly encapsulates her feelings towards fame and general perception. It might even be a rebuke to some fans who misunderstand her art or misinterpret why they should like her. Absolute perfection on my end. Overall, Honeymoon at the time of its release was definitely a career best album for Lana. It really felt like the closing chapter to her early career, a reclamation of her own narrative, a worthy successor to the sounds that she was exploring on Born to Die and Ultraviolence. I personally rate this record a solid 9 out of 10 in retrospect. It's not quite my favorite Lana era, but it is definitely the one where I felt most rewarded for staying on the line. And that's a wrap on my Honeymoon video. So I am planning to do the rest of the Lana series. I definitely still have Lust for Life and NFR, which will have an epilogue that kind of touches on Blue Banisters and Chemtrails Over the Country Club, which I already did reviews for. It's kind of wild recapping Lana's career being an active participant and fan. I honestly have seen some comments saying like, oh my god, you got to live during this era. And I do feel honored to share that experience with you guys. So thank you for watching these videos. Like, subscribe, comment, let me know how you feel about Honeymoon, what your favorite tracks are, and shout out to my members, and I will see you next video.